Jehovah tells Solomon, as long as he basically obeys Jehovah, then he will not forsake Israel. So what I've found is that Jehovah is implying that this one man has control of the destinies of countless tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, however many, whatever the population of Israel is at the time. Only this guy has the destiny of all the individuals. So no matter what these people's free will is, no matter how good or bad they are, their destiny is directly chained to the actions of Solomon.
But that's not any different than the warlord kings. Their destiny was all directly chained to him too. But what I think, again, is interesting is this is another piece of propaganda against Solomon, because after he builds his great and wonderful temple that was supposed to be extremely wonderful and beautiful and resemble the Garden of Eden, and not to resemble the building of human hands, but the design of God himself. Well, what happens is he builds other temples to other gods that he has married and gives the people free will to worship other gods.
Well, you're right, and that comes in a little bit later in the book. And
I was just drawing the line that Solomon has given his people free will when the other kings have not. They said, do this or die, basically.
And that was by the command of Jehovah.
Yeah.
So you have, of course, Jehovah needs a house, and this house needs to be overlaid with gold. How else can Jehovah have a good night's rest unless his house is overlaid with gold? And there's a long description about the construction of the house of Jehovah, which is separate from the house of Solomon.
Yes.
And so it takes 7 years to build the house of Jehovah.
Which seems like a stretch because the Taj Mahal is a great and impressive structure, and it was built in 22 years. And it's pretty big.
It's pretty big. And so it's 7 years to build the house of Jehovah and 13 years to build the house of Solomon. I thought Solomon's house must have been twice the size of the house of Jehovah, which I thought may have pissed him off and made him turn on him later.
All these are very good possibilities. Who knows?
Because you don't know. Because we do know that Jehovah is a jealous and zealous God. They sacrifice sheep and oxen, and they are in such a large number that they're not counted because the number is too large. So if they have the altar there and the amount of sacrifice is too big to count, wow, what a bloody, satanic mess that had to be. Just, wow, talk about unsanitary. I don't know.
You know, I had some qualms about that. So if this structure is supposed to be so big and ornate, you have all these animals sacrificed to this Jehovah, and Jehovah says he likes it, God likes it. Why is this place not still around? Why did Jehovah not protect his temple? I mean, the ancient Roman temple, the Colosseum, the Pantheon, and there's other ancient temples that are still around. The pyramids of Egypt are still around. And this was before this time.
King Solomon, he will only drink out of a gold cup.
Well, why would he not? It would seem stupid not to.
Which goes into this whole notion of materialism. And, you know, we all want to live in some sort of level of comfort. And we want to be able to enjoy some times of leisure, and we want to enjoy the AC. And to have this as the example of, hey, you guys need to consume. You need to buy more junk. You need to only drink out of the finest. You need to buy that Patron if you're going to drink tequila, or you need to, I mean, that is what he's saying. You should only have the very best for your lips, which just reeks of materialism, which kind of goes counter to anything really of importance in life.
See, now I can see that from a different point of view. When you have foreign dignitaries come see you, that's something to write home about. That Solomon only drank out of gold, that's a big impressment factor. I mean, that's when you get the old pimp chalice out. He's got his gold chalice. That's people go back to their homeland after sitting man, that Solomon, he's so wealthy, he's so powerful. He only drinks out of gold. No matter what it is, he drinks out of gold. He doesn't have just one cup, he has loads of them. It's a big status statement.
Oh,
and
sure.
It gives incentive to not strike him too. Look how wealthy he is. He's so rich that he can drink out of gold. He uses it a cup. I mean, we think about what gold is now, $1,700 an ounce. What do you think in ounces of a cup this big?
Oh, many.
Yeah, so you got a $10,000 cup you're drinking out of. That's a pretty big wow factor.
Doesn't that completely illustrate the point of the Bible thus far? This is propaganda for other kings.
Oh, yeah, of course.
That's just what that is. They're the lessons of all the bullet points, with much of it to have almost no detail, and you have to guess to what it all means, because there's no spiritual message in any of this unless you just actually literally make it up. You have to make it up. And if you think there's a spiritual message in giving the blood offerings, then well, you're a psycho. And if that's offensive, just shut us off, because that is what it is.
See, I think if you think it's not offensive to do the blood sacrifices, then why aren't you doing them?
Yeah.
If you think it's so good and holy, then why aren't you doing them?
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody, everywhere.
Everywhere. If you believe in this book and you think that what we're saying is offensive, then where is your blood sacrifices to Jehovah?
The freedom of religion.
Yes.
He is allowing them to have the freedom of religion. So Solomon, if you believe in the Bill of Rights and you believe in the freedom of religion, then Jehovah is anti-freedom of religion and freedom of thought and freedom of critical thinking. He gives you critical thinking, but if you use it, he's going to kill you. If you think he is evil because of all of the wars and destruction and murder that he does, then you also are going to die some way you don't really enjoy. That is, so here, Jehovah is a communist dictator.
In my notes I've got that is really petty of a so-called God to have any freedom of religion. He doesn't want you to worship him willingly. He wants to have the sword of Damocles over your head. You either worship Jehovah, you worship God, or you die. That's what he wants. He doesn't want freedom of religion. He doesn't want you to make your own choices, because that's what we've seen in, let's go all the way back to the Garden of Eden. If you want a little bit of knowledge, death, destruction, you're cast out of paradise. He doesn't want anybody of his flock to go into one of those temples and see, hey, these other gods aren't too bad. I don't have to sacrifice a tenth of what I make. I don't have to pay all these taxes to this God. I don't have to give everything to the priest. I don't have to live in fear all the time. I don't have to worry about building a fire wrong. I don't have to worry about if I get a little blood in my steak. I don't have to worry about all these things with these gods. That's harmful to Jehovah.
Wouldn't you think that a God that is all-powerful and a God that is worth loving and respecting and wanting to emulate and to walk in his footsteps, wouldn't that God say, I do want you to have the option of freedom of religion, just like you free, loving revolutionists in the United States did against Britain, to fight for your freedom of speech and your freedom of religion. Because if you examine all the other gods, you will come back to me, because you know that I am peaceful, loving, and I want the best for you, and I'm going to strive to make sure you are good in body, mind, spirit, and all as well. I want you to have the other choices. No, not this God. No, not the God they portray here, which I find that insulting, because the God we believe in isn't short of cash, and I don't think that our God needs to have mercenaries to go kill other people on his behalf because they're not, praying for him and loving him and thinking he's all so good.
Let's think about this for a moment. If you are the God of everything and not just the God of Israel, and you're the only God, you don't have a pantheon of other gods that you're competing with, what's your fear? What's your fear? Like, what are you afraid of? Like, what does it matter to you? You haven't even talked about an afterlife or what comes after. All these people in this book are all serfs. They're all slaves to this Jehovah. If you're not a slave, you die. So what is wrong with worshiping other gods? Are you going to find out something that you don't want to know? Well, no, because he doesn't even give you that option. What are you afraid of? I'll talk to God himself right now. What are you afraid of? Why are you scared that other people aren't going to follow you? That sounds like a really petty thing to do.
Very, very petty, sir, and well said. Zimri destroys the whole house of Baasha according to the words of Jehovah. That's how it works. This Jehovah should be called, as this betrayal, Jehovah the Great Destroyer.
At least the angel of death.
At least. So Jehovah was provoked by their vanities, and this Zimri guy.
Which I think is interesting, if I do stop you there, that Jehovah is provoked by their vanities when he is so vain that he can't even have the option of free will and religion in his societies or under his kingships. But he's provoked by the vanity of mortals. Now, I've heard some people say that, oh, I can't contemplate divinity in my head because I'm only immortal. Okay, so you can't contemplate that God gets upset because you're vain, but it's completely and utterly okay for a God to be vain and for a God to burn with anger, destroy, smite all these people, even given the option of free will. We can't have it. If you take free will, like the apple or the fruit of the tree of good and evil, you're cast out of paradise. If you have the option to worship at some of these other temples, I'll take everything from your children. If you worship any of these other people or kings or gods, you're destroyed, you're smitten, you're burned down, your cities, your farmland, your animals are taken from you. So it's okay for God to have pride and prejudice, but not you.
No, absolutely not you.